Similarly, any long-term strategy to reduce the threat of terrorism depends on investments that strengthen some of these fragile societies. Our generals, our commanders understand this. This is not charity. It's fundamental to our national security. A dollar spent on development is worth a lot more than a dollar spent fighting a war. This is how we prevent conflicts from starting in the first place. This is how we can ensure that peace is lasting after we've fought. It's how we stop people from falling prey to extremism because children are going to school and they can think for themselves. And families can feed themselves and aren't desperate. And communities are not ravaged by diseases, and countries are not devastated by climate changes. As Americans, we have to see the value of empowering civil societies so that there are outlets for people's frustrations. And we have to support entrepreneurs who want to build businesses instead of destroying. We have to invest in young people because the areas that are generating terrorists. Are typically having a huge youth bulge, which makes them more dangerous. And there are times where we need to help refugees who have escaped the horrors of war in search of a better life. Our military recognizes that these issues of governance and human dignity and development are vital to our security. It's central to our plans in places like Afghanistan and Iraq. Let's make sure that this wisdom is reflected in our budgets, as well. And finally, in this fight, we have to uphold the civil liberties that define us. terrorists want us to turn on one another. And while defeating them requires us to draw upon the enormous capabilities of all of our government. We have make sure changes in how we address terrorists are not abused. This is why, for example, we've made extensive reforms in how we gather intelligence around the world. Increasing oversight, placing new restrictions on the government's ability to retain and search. And use certain communications so that people trust us, and that way they cooperate and work with us. We don't use our power to indiscriminately read emails or listen to. Phone calls just targeted at folks who might be trying to do us harm. We use it to save lives. And by doing so, by maintaining these civil liberties. We sustain the confidence of the American people and we get the cooperation of our allies more readily. Protecting liberty, that's something we do for all Americans, and not just some. We are fighting terrorists who claim to fight on behalf of Islam. But they do not speak for over 1 billion Muslims around the world, and they do not speak for American Muslims. Including many who wear the uniform of the United States of America's military. If we stigmatize good, patriotic Muslims, that just feeds the terrorists' narrative. It fuels the same false grievances that they use to motivate people to kill. If we act like this is a war between the United States and Islam, we're not just going to lose more Americans to terrorist attacks. But we'll also lose sight of the very principles we claim to defend. So let my final words to you as your Commander-in-Chief be a reminder of what it is that you're fighting for. what it is that we are fighting for. The United States of America is not a country that imposes religious tests as a price for freedom. We're a country that was founded so that people could practice their faiths as they choose. The United States of America is not a place where some citizens have to withstand greater scrutiny. Or carry a special ID card, or prove that they're not an enemy from within. We're a country that has bled and struggled and sacrificed against that kind of discrimination and arbitrary rule. Here in our own country and around the world. We're a nation that believes freedom can never be taken for granted, and that each of us has a responsibility to sustain it. The universal right to speak your mind and to protest against authority. To live in a society that's open and free, that can criticize a president without retribution. A country where you're judged by the content of your character rather than what you look like. Or how you worship, or what your last name is, or where your family came from. That's what separates us from tyrants and terrorists. We are a nation that stands for the rule of law, and strengthen the laws of war. When the Nazis were defeated, we put them on trial. Some couldn't understand that, it had never happened before. But as one of the American lawyers who was at Nuremberg says, I was trying to prove that the rule of law should govern human behavior. And by doing so, we broaden the scope and reach of justice around the world. We held ourselves out as a beacon and an example for others. We are a nation that won world wars without grabbing the resources of those we defeated. We helped them rebuild. We didn't hold on to territory, other than the cemeteries where we buried our dead. Our greatest generation fought and bled and died to build an international order of laws and institutions that could preserve the peace, and extend prosperity, and promote cooperation among nations. And for all of its imperfections, we depend on that international order to protect our own freedom. In other words, we are a nation that at our best has been defined by hope, and not fear. A country that went through the crucible of a civil war to offer a new birth of freedom. That stormed the beaches of Normandy, climbed the hills of Iwo Jima, that saw ordinary people mobilize to extend the meaning of civil rights. That's who we are. That's what makes us stronger than any act of terror. Remember that history. Remember what that flag stands for. For we depend upon you. The heirs to that legacy are men and women in uniform. And the citizens who support you, to carry forward what is best in us, that commitment to a common creed. The confidence that right makes might, not the other way around. That's how we can sustain this long struggle. That's how we'll protect this country. That's how we'll protect our Constitution against all threats, foreign and domestic. I trust that you will fulfill that mission, as you have fulfilled all others. It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your Commander-in-Chief. I thank you for all that you've done, and all that you will do in the future. May God bless you. May God bless our troops. And may God bless the United States of America. Barack Obama. On the passing of Nelson Mandela. Delivered December 5, 2013. At his trial in 1964, Nelson Mandela closed his statement from the dock saying, "I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. But if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." And Nelson Mandela lived for that ideal, and he made it real. He achieved more than could be expected of any man. Today, he has gone home. And we have lost one of the most influential. Courageous, and profoundly good human beings that any of us will share time with on this earth. He no longer belongs to us, he belongs to the ages. Through his fierce dignity and unbending will to sacrifice his own freedom for the freedom of others. Madiba transformed South Africa and moved all of us. His journey from a prisoner to a president embodied the promise. That human beings and countries can change for the better. His commitment to transfer power and reconcile with those who jailed him set an example that all humanity should aspire to. Whether in the lives of nations or our own personal lives, and the fact that he did it all with grace and good humor. And an ability to acknowledge his own imperfections, only makes the man that much more remarkable. As he once said, "I am not a saint, unless you think of a saint as a sinner who keeps on trying." I am one of the countless millions who drew inspiration from Nelson Mandela's life. My very first political action, the first thing I ever did that involved an issue or a policy or politics, was a protest against apartheid. I studied his words and his writings. The day that he was released from prison gave me a sense of what human beings can do when they're guided by their hopes and not by their fears. And like so many around the globe, I cannot fully imagine my own life without the example that Nelson Mandela set. And so long as I live I will do what I can to learn from him. To Graca Machel and his family. Michelle and I extend our deepest sympathy and gratitude for sharing this extraordinary man with us. His life's work meant long days away from those who loved him the most. And I only hope that the time spent with him these last few weeks brought peace and comfort to his family. To the people of South Africa, we draw strength from the example of renewal. And reconciliation, and resilience that you made real. A free South Africa at peace with itself, that's an example to the world. And that's Madiba's legacy to the nation he loved.